Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of Justin the Food Entrepreneurs Podcast. And today I have with me my lovely and awesome significant other, Deborah Mikas. How are you doing today, Deborah?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm the host. And today I have with us James Roumeliotis of Tsai Beverage Group. I'm sure I just messed that up, but they're at Montreal, Canada, and it actually means tea in Greek, as James just told us, but he can actually tell us how to properly pronounce it if you don't mind, James.
Tsai.
And
T-S-A-E.
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 Tsai. The T and the S go together. It's Tsai.
It's probably we're doing this so the audience gets it.
It's actually spelled Tsai, you would pronounce it as in T-S-A-E.
Got it.
And so, James, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
We're doing great. And we're about to experience snow possibly in Denver, which is crazy considering it's spring here as we're recording this. So this is a little bit nuts. But wow. Tell us a little bit about your company. How did you get involved? And I mean, what is sort of your history before you became this beverage entrepreneur?
Well, in late 2017, my partner, who also happens to be a Greek Canadian, we decided to take a hot, popular Greek tea beverage, which is the Greek mountain tea. We grew up with it. Our mothers used to make it for us every time we had a cold or sore throat. And we decided to turn it into a cold beverage. We wanted to get into the functional beverage space, and we felt that there was nothing like it in the marketplace. And since people, they enjoy Greek food and beverage products, and they also have a good reputation in terms of being healthy. They think about the Mediterranean diet as well. We felt it was a good time to jump into this beverage space. And we brought an investor on board who happens to be a food scientist and a flavorist, and he helped us formulate our product, which we launched in April of last year. So it's been a year since we launched our product.
Congratulations. I too am Greek, and I'm feeling a little jilted by my parents since they both, their first language is Greek, and I have never had Greek tea. I didn't even know there was such a thing. So maybe you can tell me and the audience, what exactly is Greek tea, and how is that the same or different than traditional teas that people here in the U.S. drink on a regular basis?
Okay, well, the Greek tea is actually a flower. It's a herb. Which is grown up in the mountains in Greece, heights of 5,000 to 8,000 feet, and it's a product which is grown wild. It's an organic product. It's also naturally caffeine free, and it has a good number of antioxidants and flavonoids, which are it's actually a better tea product than the traditional green tea.
Okay. And so do you serve it cold? You brew it hot and then serve it cold, or how do you do that?
No, traditionally you brew it hot and you drink it hot, just like you would with most teas.
Okay. And so when your parents would give that to you, you said like when you were sick or whatnot, it obviously has some medicinal value to it, as you were mentioning, antioxidants and whatnot, which is, helps with anti-inflammation. And, and so does it have a certain flavor to it, but you also mentioned a flavorist. So do you add flavors to it?
No, we added flavors, but the tea itself, the only thing my parents would add would be lemon and honey.
Okay. And so you said it's made from a flower, so does it have a floral kind of bouquet flavor to it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so what flavors do you have in your lineup?
At the moment, we have ginger and honey. We also have the citrus with ginseng. And next month, we're introducing peach apricot with turmeric.
Wow. And so I'm hearing you mention, the turmeric and the ginger, and I'm imagining the medicinal benefits that those ingredients offer. And so do you name them the flavor based on the way you just described them, or do you give them, like the ginkgo, I think you said, or no, ginseng, do you say that it has like things to help with your memory or energy, or do you just name it based on the ingredients?
Well, we base it on the ingredients. The main ingredients are for the first flavor, it's the honey, and the second flavor, it's the citrus. The ginseng is there symbolically. It's not the main flavor.
Okay, so that's more just but is that added in, or that's just a natural inherent part of all of your teas?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And so, so you guys have taken on this venture now to basically produce cold teas from what used to be hot teas. Do you have a co-packer? Packer? Is this something you guys are doing yourself? And
I have a co-packer. The co-packer, the first thing the co-packer has to do is cold brew the tea for about 30 hours.
Wow! And then do you guys? Okay, go on.
Once the tea gets properly steeped in cold water for 30 hours, that's of course the main ingredients, the tea, and then they add the natural flavors, the agave, and lemon juice, and then we add the carbonation, and that's how the product is made.
Oh, and so it's a carbonated beverage. That's a really interesting twist on it. I kind of like that, because I know for me, I really love a carbonated drink, but I don't love soda. And so this, and can this product be found in the U.S., or are you guys only in Canada?
Not at the moment. We are focusing across Canada. And once we've established a good number of points of sale here and have, a proof of concept, then our next marketplace will be the U.S.
That's awesome. I'm looking at a picture of the bottle right now, and I'm loving your lettering, because it's the E is like an epsilon, so it's like you've got the Greek lettering kind of. It's cool. I like how you incorporated that.
It's actually sigma. The Greek S, the sigma.
Oh, that's right. It's a sigma, not an epsilon. Epsilon. Yeah. It's been a while since I've looked at the Greek alphabet.
Yeah, that's what those my Greek letters: sigma, kappa sigma, K, and then the sigma. Right. Which does kind of look like an E, but it's definitely a sigma. I like the play there as well.
Right. Which is the TSA.
I know. Deborah's pretending to be Greek over here. She doesn't know what hard. The T is. She doesn't know the Greek alphabet.
It's so sad. Both my parents, first language Greek, and there's 4 of us kids. They didn't teach us any Greek. And, they used to tease, because we'd be like, why didn't you teach us? And they'd be like, oh, that way we can talk about you. I'm like, that's so cruel. Like, you just do it right in front of us. She's like, I know. Isn't that great? She's a big teaser.
So this is part of our branding. That's why we decided to write it that way.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's awesome, and it's definitely because of the sort of the Greek life amongst college students and kids in the United States. When you bring it to the United States, I have a feeling a lot of people really understand what you're doing there. And then obviously the play on words for T and the S for sigma, I think it's pretty awesome. So how are you going about bringing this to market? So now you've got your co-packager, you guys are producing it. So sort of what's your strategy to bring it to market?
Well, our strategy is we use a lot of unconventional / guerrilla marketing tactics, a lot of sampling demos, and we use social media quite a bit to create a buzz.
Right.
Especially with Instagram, with a lot of nice images and brief videos. we like to sponsor, events where our target market is. So that's what we're doing. We're doing inexpensive yet very effective marketing.
Right. So are you guys direct to consumer, or are you guys going through retail channels, or both?
We go through the retail channel, but in terms of promotions, we go direct to the consumer. So we're basically helping the distributors and the retailers by being proactive.
And so, like when you mentioned you sponsor events and whatnot, that's your target market. Who is your target market?
Our target market are mainly millennials, and we found out that a majority of them are female.
Interesting. And so, like, how does this compare, in price to other teas or even to, like, your typical sodas?
Our price point is at $2.99 at the retail level, which is slightly above traditional teas and below kombucha, which is our indirect competitor in terms of benefits.
Right. And so is there, with your teas and stuff, is there also stuff that's good for your gut? Because I know kombucha definitely has a component that's good for your, I guess they call it your gut flora or your gut bacteria.
Yes, well, our next production is going to include about 5% fermentation of the tea, which is going to add additional benefits, including what you just mentioned for your gut. Yes.
And so when you mention fermentation, do you guys have to worry about it becoming alcoholic at any point? I know that when kombuchas were first coming onto the market, there was a company that I had worked with, and they were having to pull stuff off the shelf because it was over fermenting, and it was becoming the alcohol content was going higher than could be sold in just a traditional, supermarket type store, and so they were having to pull some of it off. So how do you control that?
Not at all, because only 5% of the product has fermented tea.
Oh, so it's not an
issue. Which means that the alcohol is 0.001%.
So not at all an issue. Yeah.
Yes.
And just
so it's a clean label product. We've improved it over time. We got rid of the cane sugar. We replaced it with agave. We got rid of the citric acid. Not that it's bad for you. It's vitamin C. But we decided to replace it with clarified lemon juice.
Very interesting. And how is citric acid, and because I thought you said it's vitamin C. I always thought that it was a citrus of itself, like a lemon juice. Is one like a processed product that comes in powder form, and you guys are actually using like a lemon?
That's what citric acid is. It comes in a powder form. It's a natural product. Mm-hmm. But we decided to replace it with clarified lemon juice. It has... it sounds better, and it does the same job.
Exactly. So, and then I see as I'm looking at your page, it says organically cultivated. So is that in terms of the products that you're using? Is that how you process it? What is your reference when you're saying organically cultivated?
The tea herbs themselves are organically cultivated. In other words, they're not planted. They grow wild, mm-hmm. and they don't use any pesticides.
Great. And so how do you guys do your procurement for your ingredients?
Well, we have we have a couple of suppliers in Greece that send us the tea mm-hmm. In bulk form, and then we use local products to complete the product. Natural flavors are all local, for example, and so is the agave that we use. So it's a product which is made with imported Greek tea along with domestic products, ingredients.
And so just out of curiosity, do you and your business partner have a background in food and beverage before you guys started this company?
No, my partner and I, we have a marketing and branding background. But our investor, who became our partner a few months ago, he has a PhD in food and beverage science.
Well, that helps. That's for sure.
For sure.
And
he's a big asset for us. He's the one who originally helped us formulate the product, and he also provides us with natural flavors because he's a shareholder in a flavor house.
Oh, that's cool.
So it benefits him. He gets to double dip and benefit both ways.
I like it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he's an investor with value add.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have you guys, I mean, you mentioned that you're not currently in the US, but that you are looking at that. So if you haven't gotten there yet, just say I haven't gotten there yet, but I have so many questions about, what does that take to bring a product and bring it international? Is that a big hurdle, or are the products very similar and the standards similar from Canada to the US?
The standards are very similar. In fact, if anything, we have the U.S. label ready to go. All we have to do is just print it.
Really?
We have the FDA-approved nutritional facts, the ingredient declarations. Everything's ready. We even have an FDA number. What's holding us back is basically we with limited resources and funds, we want to focus on one particular region and at a time.
Yeah, that makes
even
sense.
if you go into the U.S., we can't, we can't go everywhere at the same time. It would have to be either the northeast of the United States or perhaps California.
Right. And so that'll be its own little trick, right? Like one, which can you get better distribution contracts with? And two, which is a better market for you? So I guess you'll probably have to do more research into that when you get to that point.
Absolutely. Yes. I prefer California, for example, because I know our product is going to do extremely well. It's going to be very well received.
Right. I agree.
But the Northeast is closer to home for us, easier to deal with. And, the population surpasses the Canadian population just in the Northeast of the United States.
Right. What size volume do you guys operate in when you're creating a batch? I mean, are you doing how many gallons at a time?
We do approximately 50,000 bottles per run for each flavor.
And just on that topic, so how many? I mean, you mentioned the 2 flavors that you have right now. Is there a goal to add more flavors to the profile?
Yes, we're going to be adding a 3rd flavor next month, which is going to be the peach apricot and turmeric. And then we have a 4th flavor, which we are presently working on.
And so
our goal is to have 4 or 5 SKUs maximum. And then once we've done that, then we're going to come up with the original flavor, original tea with no flavoring. And that's going to be a non-carbonated version.
Interesting. And then I noticed that your bottle is glass. And is there, this is always a topic with people. I mean, some people are like, it has to be glass, and other people really want plastic. And so what was part of your decision in coming up with your packaging?
The look and the environment.
Yeah, both.
Look, environment, as well as everything tastes better in glass.
I agree. People talk a lot about that. That's one of the, upsides of it. Some of the downsides of it is the weight and the shipping and the cost of the handling. And some co-packers won't deal with glass because of obviously breakage and contamination that can come from that breakage. But you have a beautiful package. It looks really nice.
It's a very unique bottle. It's not even available in North America. This comes from Germany. This is a European bottle.
Oh, and that's fitting with the Greek tea. Yeah.
Right. It's gorgeous.
It is a very high standard, and I think it looks great because it's sort of a European product in that it's a Greek tea that having a European bottle just makes it so much better. It's like San Pellegrino, and they've sort of stuck to that Italian-style can and in imaging, and it really does well here in the United States. And actually, it's really taken off in terms of seeing it in Costco and the grocery stores here.
We're also working on our own mold, which is going to be much sexier looking than that.
Oh, really? Like you'll create your own?
It's going to be very distinct. Yes, we're going to be the only ones who are going to have this. It's going to be proprietary.
And how do you go through that? Like, what's that process? How do you? I mean, will that be produced in?
It's a lengthy process. It's going to take about 8 months before it's all said and done, before we can actually have the bottles in hand.
And will that be produced in Montreal, or is that something you'll have to do overseas or something? And
that's going to be produced overseas due to cost.
Right.
But it's still going to be of high standard. It has to be of high standard because of the pasteurization that the product goes through.
Right.
It has to be able to withstand high.
Oh yeah, so it's a heated pasteurization then.
Yes, it is, and that gives the product a 2-year shelf life.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Ambient temperature, doesn't have to be refrigerated.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, that's always the trick these days. So much food is going back to being natural, and you're kind of seeing the periphery of the grocery store getting larger with more and more products. But the trouble is always the shelf life. And so that's amazing that you guys are able to get that shelf life, and especially without refrigeration. I mean, that's a huge win for you guys, and probably a big advantage to getting yourselves into stores because they don't have to worry about it expiring and the waste.
That's right, yeah, and that's where the food scientist comes in. He was able to figure out a way to do that.
So, what are some of the things that you think you feel that you guys have had the most success at so far in doing as a business? Obviously, you came from a marketing background, but where are you finding the most success in your business?
The most success is in getting the word to spread, word of mouth, as well as social media. Trying to be everywhere with the product initially, and having people try it. Once they try it, then they become frequent purchases. We have a lot of resales. We don't just want to sell once. We want to be able to resell the product often. We want to be a high consumption product.
And so I'm trying to look you guys up on social media. What is your Instagram?
The Instagram page is, at the moment, I believe it's Arte Vita Health. ARTEVITA Health.
Arte.
Because I also have you guys at, I can't say the word, Tsai.cold.brew.
Yeah, you can find that if you go to our website on the homepage, you'll be able to see the direct links to Instagram.
Oh, perfect. I just have to go down to the bottom. Wait, so are these all your products? Do you do more than you? So you do more than just this new tea that you have out on the market?
We began 3 years ago with a gluten-free pita crisps product, which is also very, very unique. It's made with plant-based ingredients.
Oh, amazing. I'm looking at that. And so tell us about that. Like, what's in that? So what's in your pita chip? Is it just a dried actual pita, or is it the pita itself different and unique?
It's actually a pita. It's like pita bread, except that it's been baked several times, and it gave it the crisp the crispiness.
Right.
So it's actually, but it starts off as a pita bread.
Okay.
And it's made with 4 legume. It's made with chickpea legume flour. It's made with red lentil, black bean, yellow pea. So
they're gluten-free.
Correct.
Oh, that's
because they were also made in a gluten-free facility, gluten-free certified facility.
Yeah,
so
that's right, and that's a big thing, because people will ask us about having gluten-free products, and we tell them, we're like, well, we can make a gluten-free product, but it's much harder for us to do a certified gluten-free product because in order to do that, the facility either has to be completely gluten-free, or you have to test every single batch that you make, which can kind of be cost prohibitive. And so you guys are being able to do that by being in a facility that's certified.
Past tense, we were. That was a very challenging product. We sold all our inventory, and unfortunately, we weren't able to replace our co-packer. Closed down that they shut down. So we were scrambling to find somebody, another certified gluten-free facility that was able and willing to take our product.
Right.
And we just found one recently. About 6 months later.
It's hard. There's not a lot of facilities like that. It's definitely a niche market. And, while there are more and more gluten-free products coming online, there's just not that many that are certified gluten-free. And so for people who are celiac, they really have to have that certified gluten-free. For other people who have some intolerances, it's not nearly as critical that it be certified. They can eat, they just need the ingredients themselves to be basically whole. Because I forget what it is, but isn't it like 20 parts per million, or maybe even less than that, of
20,
what?
Yes, it's actually less than 28 parts per million, and it's not just the facility where it's produced that has to be certified gluten-free. It's also every single ingredient that goes into the product that has to be certified gluten-free.
Right, exactly. And so, because people will have ingredients that, there are certified gluten-free, and they're like, well, can we do it since our ingredients are? And we're like, well, we'd have to make sure every single batch, because we don't have a facility that is certified gluten-free. And so it's definitely tricky for sure. And so I can see why it took you guys 6 months to find someone. And so, and that's probably its own tricky scenario for you guys, because
It is.
it's not like there's 20 facilities for you to go and kind of compete against. You're kind of beholden to this one group. And so this is your baby, and you want to make sure that they can produce to your standard and whatnot. So that probably makes it a little tricky. So are you guys actually in contract with them and ready to go, or you're still trying to work through making sure that they can make it the way you need
to work through. And honestly, we put most of our focus on the beverage. So we would be more than happy to license out or sell that part of the business,
right?
So we can continue focusing on the beverage.
Okay, that makes sense. And so considering this is now really the second product line, the teas, do you guys have? I mean, you mentioned the different flavors that you had, and then also having the original. And so do you have ideas of having more and more products? Like you used to have the pita, now you have the tea. So you want to keep building the brand.
Yes. Right now, for example, we're just waiting for legislation from the Canadian government so we can introduce a CBD infused tea, which will probably end up being a sage.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's becoming such a big thing, and everyone's trying to figure out their way through, like, what's allowed, what isn't allowed. Here in Colorado, marijuana itself is legalized, and so, CBD is pretty easy to find, but it's like, considering the federal government hasn't passed some of it, it's a tricky, sticky situation, in terms of what's allowed, what isn't allowed. And so, what are the standards there in Canada? You said you're waiting for legislation. So what is it that they're going to be passing?
Marijuana is for recreational and medicinal reasons. We're allowed as of last year. They're sold all across Canada. But in terms of infusing products with CBD or THC, where the legislation is not very clear right now, but they say that by October this year, they're going to have legislation coming out that's going to be very precise in terms of what's allowed, what's not allowed.
Right. I mean, I just feel like it's one of these things that there's so many medicinal benefits to it that are helpful to people, from, sleep to aches and pains to headaches. There's just so many different things that CBD can help people with. And, anyway, so that's really exciting. I love hearing that that's a product that you guys are, having in the works once your government allows that.
Right. And then we have another Greek beverage product that we're working on as well for 2020.
And what's that?
I'd rather not bring it up at the moment.
Top secret. We'll have you back someday and you can tell us all about it.
It's going to be a very, very unique product that doesn't exist out there at the moment, with a lot of health benefits as well.
So when you guys do the research or came out with the Greek tea, did you actually, I mean, and you're talking about suppliers in Greece, did you actually go there to do your research?
One of our minor partners who has been in advertising for the longest time, he's the one that was able to source our suppliers. And he keeps tabs with them, in Greece, because that's where he lives.
Right. So, what are some of the hurdles that you can kind of tell us about and tell the audience about? Because, we obviously have all sorts of food entrepreneurs who listen in on this show. And, bringing a product in from overseas, I'm sure there's lots of regulatory compliance to that. We all know that when you travel internationally, they always ask you, do you have any produce with you? Because that's just not allowed. So for you, as someone who's doing it as, part of your business, what regulatory compliance do you have to go through in order to bring product in from a foreign country?
It's not as difficult as we, initially thought. Basically, we send samples to the equivalent of the FDA, or Agriculture Canada, it's called, and they gave us the green light. They checked out the product to make sure that it doesn't have too many microbes and that it's a safe product. It is what it's claimed to be, and they gave us a certificate, and then we basically import the product and without any issues.
And how is the continuity of the products you're receiving? I know that we have a group that imports some products, and it's coming from a foreign country, and they're kind of always having to deal with making sure that there's consistency in the product that they're receiving. Do you have any issue with that, or yours is basically a pure product, or is it a blend?
Ours is a pure product. It's consistent because it's a pure product, and it's grown in the same fields.
Right, so that makes it easier.
Yes, there are three big challenges in terms of making this thing work, and that has more to do with finding the right co-packer. And second of all, having adequate funding, and third of all, distribution.
Right.
So I would say those are the main challenges. Not so much importing the main ingredient, the tea.
Right. So, you mentioned the three biggest hurdles. So in terms of the funding, how have you guys gone about that? It sounds like you have a variety of partners. So are you guys self-funding, or did you have to go out and access revenue in some way or funds in some way?
Initially, we bootstrapped, and, we don't come from, very wealthy families. So whatever money we had, a lot of it had gone into the gluten-free products. So we had to make the most of our limited funds that we had to be able to launch the tea. That's why initially we were only able to launch one flavor because we had enough money to do so, just for one flavor. And then we started, talking to several people that we had on our list of potential investors, and we approached the person who helped us formulate it and who provides us with the flavors, and he was more than happy to come on board because he believes in our product.
Right, which is really the best investor you can have, someone who believes in it, right? Because it's just more people backing what you're doing and supporting you, not just from their own personal knowledge, but, out there being a word of mouth person too for it.
And you need somebody who's passionate about the product. We run across many people that we know that have money, but the moment that they're not crazy about the product or don't understand the product, it's very difficult to persuade them to invest their money.
Right. It's a tricky venture too, because, especially for people who aren't in food, it's a little, on one side, you go to business school and they talk about widgets because it's all the same, and it is somewhat all the same, but there's just a lot of regulatory compliance that goes with it. And so, when you bring a financial component into it, there's definitely, it helps if someone has a background in food to kind of be more knowledgeable and a little bit more sophisticated in the sense that they understand the industry.
Correct.
Yeah. So you mentioned then the third thing that was the big difficult hurdle is the distribution. So maybe talk a little bit and kind of share with the audience, some of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them, and even lessons learned of like, gosh, I wish I had known this back then.
Well, when it comes to distribution or with the distributors, they're very finicky in terms of who they want to add to their portfolio of product offerings. Because then, especially when it comes to a product which is unknown to them, they loved everything about our product, but they weren't sure, how it's going to be received, at the points of sale, because it's nobody knows what a Greek mountain tea is.
Right.
That was the first issue they had. The second one was they were concerned about us being able to produce enough to keep up with demand. And the third issue they had was that we only had one flavor. They said, when you have 3 flavors, come back and see us.
Oh, that's interesting. And is that because people, I know me, like the other day I was at the store and while it was zero water, I still was like, oh, look, there's all these different flavors. And so, while you can buy a 6-pack of one thing or even a case of something, they had individual ones. And so I grabbed a bunch of individual ones because I wanted to try all the flavors. And so maybe, is that their point, is that people want to try more than one? And
Yes, because people were asking us, when are you coming up with the next flavor? What's the next flavor going to be?
Right. Well, and I would also imagine that if you're the distributor, if they can deal with you that has 3 products versus having 3 different companies to deal with, it's a third of the work. So maybe it's also for them easier to have more products. That too. Yeah. And so
I agree. Yeah. And then, of course, the next the other challenge was the co-packers. And the reason why that's challenging is because, number one, you either don't have a co-packer that's able to do pasteurization, carbonization, glass bottles,
right,
steeping your tea, or they can do it for you, but they're either too busy or very dysfunctional.
Right. So how often are you producing? You said 50,000. You do 50,000 bottles of each flavor, but how often do you do that? Is it like every month, or are you consistently purchasing from them?
At the moment, it's every 3 months.
And so you kind of run in spurts, but that's kind of nice for them too. They kind of know, and they can probably bang out the production. But I can see how that would be kind of an issue, because if it's all this specialized equipment, but you're only producing once every 3 months, it's, I can see how that's a little bit tricky.
Right. And this is why, down the road, we'd like to we would like to produce in-house, have our own production facility, not just for our product, but also for white label as well.
Right.
Because we know that we can bring in a lot of business for private label.
Right. So just curious, does your co-packer do only beverages, or they do all sorts of things and beverages?
No, just strictly beverages.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because there's definitely, there's a part where some of the brewing, and you said 30 hours. That in and of itself is kind of an interesting hurdle, right? Because the production floor is, time is money. And so trying to be able to do that. So that's probably also part of why you do it once every 3 months and do bigger runs to kind of keep that cost down.
So now we're working on providing an extract in the form of a powder that we can just give to any co-packer, and it'll be easier to produce rather than having them steep the tea prior to production.
And so, so you basically will dehydrate it into a powder form? Is that how it works? Yeah. Or interesting.
Correct. Yeah, and we're working with a company in the U.S. right now, actually in Colorado.
Really?
That's going to be, yeah.
Is it in Boulder? Because Boulder's kind of a food mecca in Colorado. Oh, no.
And so that's...
yes,
that's really that's a great idea, and it's sort of like, a lot of beverage companies figure out ways to simplify their products so that it can be reproduced in other locations. Yeah. Coca-Cola did it with their syrup and recipes, and just as an example for the audience, but it's easier, and then you can, if you produce the powder and then ship it, it's a lot cheaper than shipping a bottle full of liquid, because obviously most of the weight is actually in the water that's added to it and the weight of the glass bottle. So if it's being done somewhere else in local markets and shipped out in a 300 to 600 mile radius, it's more cost effective that way for sure, because logistics is the most expensive piece. I feel like in any food or beverage business, you have this huge amount of money that's spent on shipping food to you and shipping products to you, which you already have shipping from Greece, and then shipping the product out.
Shipping is a very expensive part of the whole pricing. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's why we do our own distribution in our model up to 300 miles. But after that 300 miles, you start really eating away at your costs, like come 350, 400 miles. So, you need big shipping, and you need to make sure you have a whole trailer load in order to ship that far, because otherwise it's just not economical. It's just hard to ever make it make sense. But shipping it with the dry goods is a great thing. And we used to do a lot of dry goods for chicken, like marinating. They just add water and they can marinate the chicken, and then the breading for frying it and stuff like that. But immediately when we got into like the frozen actual products instead of just the dry products, the powders, your margins and profitability start really going, down in terms of the percentage, because it's so inefficient to ship things unless they're in powder form. So I really love that you're doing that. I think it's a great idea, obviously.
Well, we have no choice, because if we want to open up more doors with co-packers, we need to go that route. And it's also easier for quality control.
And so tell us a little bit, how is things regulated in Canada? There's not much regulation other than having the co-packer inspected by the health department here in the United States. Is that similar to Canada?
We have, we mirror what you have in the States. It's not much different.
So it's just your typical health inspector. They make sure the process makes sense. There's no cross-contamination or critical control points. And then obviously when you're pasteurizing the product, that says a lot as well.
Yes. And it has to be precise. It has to be for X amount of time going through the tunnel, for X amount temperature. It has to be certain temperature for X amount of time. Yeah.
And so James,
you don't want it for too long, for too high of a temperature, because that may kill the flavor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, below a certain threshold, because it may not kill all the microbes.
Yeah, it's a balance, and people talk about baking and how hard baking is a science, but also killing bacterias and making sure your food hits the right temperature. That's a science in and of itself, because you've got to kill as many possible foodborne illness-related pathogens as possible doing it, but yet you don't want to overdo it, because in food you'll overcook it or overheat it or kill the flavor by putting some artificial ingredient in it. And in beverages, you can often do the same thing, put in artificial ingredients that ruin the flavor profile or overheat it in the heating pasteurization process. That kills the flavor as well. So it's just such a delicate process, and really takes people know what they're doing to do that.
That's right. Yeah. And it's also by trial and error as well, right? Yeah, you have to produce a lot of samples and see which one turns out to be the most refined, and then you base your future production on those results.
And so, James, as we start to wrap up the episode, I sort of want to give you the floor, and just take it wherever you want to go, and just what is it that you would like to share with the audience and the people that, possible future consumers? We're across, the podcast is now in over 38 countries. We just hit the 39th country today. But if you could reach out to all these people and they could hear your message, what would you want to tell them?
I would like to tell them that as the food and beverage business is not as easy as it seems from the outside in. There are a lot of factors that one has to consider, and the three main ones are the ones I mentioned. The three main challenges, which are funding. The other one is co-packing, manufacturing, and the third one would be distribution. It's much more difficult than it actually is. What it seems. And once you delve into it, you discover a lot of pains that you have to overcome. But what also matters is having a product which is in the health sector. It has to be a functional food or a beverage, because that's where the future is. The future is in plant-based, healthy foods with the least amount of with a clean label. And if you are able to bring down your production costs and your logistical costs to the minimum, you'll be able to make a good margins and good profits down the road. The beauty about this business is that if you build a good brand, you're going to be under the radar, and a lot of established brands will eventually approach you and buy you out for crazy amounts of multiples. We've been seeing that for the last 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. And, I couldn't agree with you more, especially on the part about it having, it being a healthy product and whatnot. I mean, we're just so more and more all the time seeing food as medicine type of an attitude, and more products are coming to the market. Even the healthcare industry is looking at it that way. There are, health companies and hospitals and insurance companies who are really turning to that model, realizing that if they can keep patients healthy, they keep them out of the hospital, which ultimately helps their bottom line. And so there's really, a big transition of food as medicine. And I think that you're spot on that note. And, I wish you all this success in the future. I mean, I can't wait to get my hands on your product. And so I'll have to figure out how to do that from Colorado. But
send you samples.
That would be great. We would love that. And so, and if there's ever anything we can do to help you guys as you start, coming into the U.S., it'd be fun to reunite. And we definitely want to talk to you guys again, considering you have some new product in your thought process that'll come down the road. So when that is about to launch, we'll be sure to do this again with you, and we can kind of talk about that and share with the audience and help you get your word out there on your new product.
Well, thank you. That would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it as well, and I would love to get you guys back on in like 8 to 10 months and continue to tell your story with the new products you launch, as well as the original teas we discussed as well, if you guys would be interested in that.
Yes, we are, definitely. Yeah, we would love to share our experiences with your audience. Absolutely.
Yeah, and thank you so much, James, for taking the time and responding. And so the audience knows, we reached out through Instagram. They liked a photo we had on Instagram, and I sort of saw them and did some research on their company and what they're doing in the teas and the beverages, and did my homework and really liked what they were doing, and reached out to them to be on the podcast, and they responded like right away and scheduled an appointment to do the recording, and it was so easy and it was so great. So I appreciate you guys being so responsive.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Much appreciated. And we look forward to the next episode. Not to mention the episode that you're going to be recording from here on.
Yeah. And so if the audience likes what we're doing, please share it. If you guys like the story and are interested in the tea, you can look it up online. It'll be in the episode notes so everyone can find the teas and the beverages that we're talking about on this show. Share it with your friends and family so they can find out about it. And if you want to reach out to me, it's justin@thefoodentrepreneurs.com. That's my email address. You can reach out to me if you're interested in being on the show or have any questions. If it's on social media, it's Justin and the Food Entrepreneurs on both Facebook and Instagram. And thank you everyone for listening in. Continue to keep sharing, and thank you for all the love and support in all 39 countries we're in, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.